Education systems have a key role to play in redressing the legacy of residential schools and advancing the process of Canadian reconciliation. St. Albert Public Schools have proud histories of supporting First Nations, Métis, and Inuit education through cultural events and guest speakers, as well as integrating literature and curricular approaches. Following the release of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada Calls to Action in 2015, our district committed to a more focused and intentional approach to supporting First Nations, Métis, and Inuit education. This video is part of that focus. It celebrates our first District Aboriginal Day event, highlights our shared belief in the importance of our work in this area, explores students' perspectives, and outlines our direction for the future. At St. Albert Public Schools, we hope it sparks conversation, fosters relationships, and strengthens our commitment.
I think Aboriginal Day is a great opportunity for all Canadians to honor and to recognize the rich cultural and spiritual contributions made to the Canadian mosaic every day by the Indigenous peoples of Canada.
Here we have 600 or 700 kids listening to drummers, following a smudge, a prayer by an elder from Saddle Lake, happening right here at our school. That's pretty cool. And these kids are going to leave today having experienced not only some of these cultural realities and having shared with, respectfully, me as a Métis and these as Cree drummers and an elder, but they're going to go away with stories and enrichment, knowing that this is where they're from, this is where they live, and it's going to make them better Canadians. And the truth is that they need truth in order to make the right kind of decisions. And they're all leaving here a little bit more sympathetic. And let's face it, this generation rocks. They are a nice group of kids. Give them the information, and they'll make better decisions than we made. They just have to know. And after this morning, after this afternoon, those kids, they'll know.
As a board, we strongly committed to making sure that the information that our students are learning about Canada's history is more accurate. And in all of its not so pretty context. And I think that that is really critical, that students in St. Albert and students in Canada start learning the true heritage of our country.
Our First Nations, Métis and Inuit community is the fastest growing community. It has the youngest population in this country. And it's important that we do everything that's possible to ensure that the gap that we see in education, in graduation rates, etc., are closed. We do pretty well in St. Albert, but there's still ways to go, and we need to close that gap. The path since truth and reconciliation is an important one. It's helping us all understand what the real truth is, and I think that as a district, the most important thing that we can do for our almost 8,000 students is teach every one of them, although only 500 or so would be First Nations, Métis and Inuit, what the real truth is.
Like teaching our children from all races, it's important that they get that knowledge, to know the history, the true history of this treaties, of what was signed between Native peoples and the Queen. In reality, they tried breaking our spirit. They attempted to break our spirit. But they can't do that to a nation of people. Because who would they blame if they wiped out a race?
The other thing is also, I think that, for all of us here, there's so much to be learned about their own culture. Like today we talk about Treaty 6. When the people signed the treaty, they were really expecting all of us to take good care of the land and make sure that the land will be good for the kids coming. Not only their kids, but for everybody. Now, do we do that? I think that we could question how well we do it, and some of us do, for sure. We try hard, but I think we can do a better job.
My father was a residential school survivor here in St. Albert at the U-Ville. What he taught me is that people need to know. People need to know the story. And when I ask him why, he says, because of this. This is why people need to know. This is how we will heal. This is how we will move forward. This is how we will bridge gaps in the community. This is how people will be whole again. This is how they will thrive. This is how they will become healthy. So whether you're Aboriginal or non-Aboriginal, the story has to be told because it is a part of Canadian history. You know, we hear a lot of tragic and horrific stories about the church and the Aboriginal people, and those stories do exist. I've heard many, but there's some successes too. So I think that we need to learn those positive stories, not just the negative and the traumatic stories, because there are some really good stories too, and that's where those contributions come in.
I believe that it's important to know about Aboriginal cultures and what's happening with them because they're a very big part of our country. They shaped our country, they helped the explorers, and we need to know about the cultural diversity of where we are. And since it's been hidden and oppressed for so long, it makes it even more important.
Yeah, we've been working on some art projects to put in a display case that represents the Indigenous people's ideologies and also a map that shows where everyone is from and their ancestors came from in Canada.
Teachers, you have to inform yourselves as much as you can, and you have to take that risk. And right now what's happened since Truth and Reconciliation is that governments have said, that's federal, provincial, municipal, certainly school boards, teachers, you have to teach this to kids. And teachers are a little concerned. On the outside, do we dare tell stories that we don't feel are our stories? Are we getting into trouble with some of our elders, with some of the First Nation groups? And on the other side, they're feeling, in fairness, can they be trusted? Do we dare tell them what we've done? Can we tell them about residential schools, and can we tell them of the abuse and they're a little worried. And I want teachers to know, if you're going to err, you should err on the upside, not the downside. And I think teachers should know that to become a reader only takes three things. It takes time, and everybody has that. But the other two elements that we miss in our Indigenous communities are these two: heroes and role models. That in many cases they don't have the heroes and the role models they need because of residential schools and the fallout of residential schools. So they don't have the heroes. Teachers have to know they've got to put on their hero hat, and they've got to get into the communities and say to their parents and to the communities and their elders, you've got to start to read. Let your kids see you read. I don't care what it is. So they need the heroes. And the third element teachers have to hear is that they need books. And for the first time in history, books are there for our kids. 10 years ago, you were hard-pressed to find a dozen good books on Indigenous people that were real, that were written by people who knew, sincere, good books. And all of a sudden, they're showing up.
So when I first heard about the Wisdom and Guidance Committee, I thought it was a really great initiative to help not only our First Nations, Métis and Inuit students, but also to make tangible impact on their families as well. So that's through curriculum development and program planning, as well as creating resources and helping make resources more available to teachers, families, and schools. Another area that we're looking at is seeking out accurate and relevant literature and music so that our teachers are providing an authentic experience to not only our First Nations, Inuit and Métis populations, but for all students in the district.
I've worked at the Musée Héritage Museum in St. Albert for the past about 11 to 12 years. And one of the things that I was tasked with was working to build Aboriginal programs because the Alberta curriculum was changing. Being in St. Albert and the history that goes along with this community, it wasn't easy, but it was something that we were able to do and do very well and relate to the curriculum. But I always felt that we needed more input from the school boards and from the teachers and from the trustees and people like that, because the teachers are one voice, but the administration is another voice. And the two voices together can be very powerful. So there are things happening within the community. There's good resources that are out there. It's accessing those resources and having them available for teachers and for students to partake in and listen to.
We have to engage our youth. We have to. They are our future, right? And I think that if we don't engage our youth, I I just don't see how we move together in balance and harmony as a community.
This is the generation that's going to make a big difference in the way we come together as a nation. And it's important that we do so. It behooves us at St. Albert Public to make sure that we are teaching the truth, that our teachers know and understand the truth, and that they can then share that with the students who are so eager to learn, who are so accepting of one another. This generation is amazing. It doesn't matter what color your skin, you know, what your sexual preferences are, what your religion is, what country you come from. They are accepting of one another. And we need to build upon that.